The word druid means oak knower or bearer of oak wisdom. They established their communities by great oak trees and in oak groves. They considered the forests and the mountains to be their temples and viewed the feminine as sacred along with the masculine. They saw human sexuality as an important and natural part of life. The Druids were the religious leaders of the Celts, a culture that spanned the whole of Middle Europe at one point, from what is now Turkey to the Atlantic coast of Spain, up through the British Isles, all before the time of Christ. They were a loose federation of tribes sharing a common culture and language base. According to author John Philip Newell, a unique aspect of the Celtic tradition compared to most other Western traditions is that it cannot be reduced to a set of doctrines or beliefs. Instead, at its core is the conviction that we need to keep listening to what our soul already knows and to honor the sacredness in earth and within all things, including all human beings. If that sounds familiar, it should. The Celtic spiritual path has many resonances with our Unitarian Universalist tradition today. Around 50 CE, a shift began to occur in parts of the Celtic world, a transition from Druidic pre-Christian wisdom to Christian wisdom. But interestingly, in this context, the message of Christ entered the Celtic world not in a fixed written form. It entered in a more fluid spoken form, allowing for a rich intermingling of Christian and pre-Christian wisdom. It had a very positive effect on Christianity that allowed for the mystery of Christ to give further expression to the sacredness the Celts already knew existed deep in the matter of the earth and in the stirrings of the human soul. This was in stark contrast to the theological positions that gained prominence in Western Christianity, emphasizing the depravity of humanity and the world with such concepts as original sin and creatio ex nihilo in Latin, or creation out of nothing. These Celtic Christian views were amazingly preserved as a legitimate alternative view within Orthodox Christianity, even as the Celts were defeated and their land taken by the Christian imperial forces in Europe. The Celtic Christian writings that have come down to us begin as early as the 2nd century with a man named Irenaeus of Lyon. He was a student of a man named Polycarp, who was in turn a student of St. John, thought to have written the Gospel of John. In his commentary on the prologue to St. John's Gospel, which begins famously, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God," Irenaeus sees Jesus not as speaking a new word, but as uttering again the first word, the sound at the beginning and the heart of life. Everything is essentially an utterance of the divine, a sacred sounding in this view. Each creature and life form a unique and unrepeatable expression of the one. As Irenaeus put it, heaven is to be found in the things of the earth, and the divine is to be cherished within the earthliness of human life and relationship. Something Unitarian Universalism resonates with today. This view remains squarely within the beliefs of Orthodox Christianity, yet it was creatio ex nihilo and the doctrine of original sin that gained greater prominence in a way that was used against the Celts and so many other cultures. This view of creation out of nothing, it came to be understood by the imperial powers in such a way that the Creator was allowed to be distant and transcendent, not of the earth, that God had fashioned matter out of nothing. In this view, the universe is seen as born not out of the substance of God, but out of nothing. The earth and matter and the human soul are considered depraved, weak, and less than, and while not intended for this purpose by the theologians that promoted this, in John Philip Newell's excellent book, Sacred Earth, Sacred Soul, he identifies how empire naturally gravitated towards this theological position and this interpretation because it could be used as a type of permission to do whatever it wished with material things and with other people who did not have access to this transcendent God. It set the stage for how Christianity was to be used by empires over the centuries to sanction their exploitation of the earth. This played out again and again in the history of colonization, notably in the doctrine of discovery, a Christian justification originating from the highest authorities of the Catholic Church to take all non-Christian land and to dominate its inhabitants as well. What began as a religious decree in the 1400s then became the basis for a legal concept, even in the United States of America, when the doctrine of discovery was invoked in an 1823 U.S. Supreme Court ruling that indigenous people had only rights of occupancy, not ownership, over lands they had long lived on. The land then was open for the taking. And although as early as 1530, the Vatican tried to nullify this doctrine, seeing the impact, the damage was done. It was too late. The position was officially repudiated by Pope Francis just this year. Isn't that incredible? In the Celtic tradition, it is said that we humans suffer from soul forgetfulness. We've forgotten who we are and have fallen out of true relationship with the earth and one another. Our planet's well-being is not about becoming something other than ourselves or about acquiring spiritual knowledge that is essentially foreign to us. It is about waking up to a knowledge that is deep within the very fabric of our beings and living in relationship with that wisdom. And like other earth-centered beliefs, the Celtic spiritual vision has come down to us and can inspire us still today. I'd like to end with a short story of a way in which it has done so already. In Sacred Earth, Sacred Soul, John Philip Newell points to the work of a man he calls one of the greatest prophets of ecological consciousness and action in modern times. Who do you think it is? An American Celt, he says, named John Muir. It's interesting to see the parallels between John Muir's writing and the 2nd century writer that I had referenced earlier here, Irenaeus. Excuse me. John Muir wrote that the wind, the waters, the springs are all words of God. The earth, a divine manuscript. A spiritual fire burning in every tree. One of the things he's best known for is in 1903, he accompanied President Theodore Roosevelt on a 3-day camping expedition into Yosemite. These 3 days have been hailed by some as the most important conservation meeting in American history, leading to the creation of countless national parks and reserves. So our American Celt, John Muir, said that deep within us is a primal love of earth. Let us awaken to and kindle this flame of love. We need to not just speak out against the wrongs being done to earth and her creatures, but to speak and act with love and care for her as well, if we are to be successful in saving this planet and honoring the diversity of life on it. The earth is sacred, worthy of our devotion, and miraculous. And it is our home. We can find strength from ancestral teachings, such as the Celts, that honored the earth and her creatures as sacred. So many of these traditions have come down to us through stories of inspiration. So let us sing Earth's praises as we work together to support and preserve all life on this planet. Amen and blessed be. Let us sit for a moment in this quietness. I invite you again to listen to the beating of your own heart. Feel the sacredness of all life around us. Remember that all life is sacred. We are a part of a greater whole. As John Muir wrote, the wind, the waters, the springs are all the words of God, and the earth a divine manuscript. Let us hear her teachings and join in her praises.